Lockdown defense family, supporters, detractors, hate listeners, everybody in between. The NFL draft is come and gone, and it's time to give out some awards. We're going to do the top 5 best drafts of 2026, and we're going to kick the people's back in that had the worst drafts of 2026. Let's get into it. So it is time to see who won and who lost for the 2026 NFL draft. So we're going to get into my top 5 quintessential picks for who did really well in the draft and who did horrible. And it is a lot of both. Might even have to give out some audible mentions because I'm here to tell you that it was a lot going on. There was a lot going on when it came down to the draft. But there's a lot I liked and a lot I hated. And yeah, we're going to bring it all down here. So for all those teams and all those fans out there, they've been talking in our comments throughout this whole entire process of free agency, pre-draft, and things of that nature. Even after the draft, they didn't like our shorts. You know, we had a couple of fans get a little uproar about our takes, but it is what it is. It comes with the territory. So we're going to drop knowledge here again on a Brightful Tuesday. So I'm going to give you my top 5 losers and winners. I'm going to start with the winners. I'm going to stay positive, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, and I'm sure you'll love the list. So as I said, we'll do our top 5 winners and losers in this NFL draft for 2026. You know, please let me know in the comments how you felt about your team, Jack, personally. If your team didn't make it, let me know why, and, you know, maybe we'll do a rendition of, you know, the audible mentions or the fan favorites of the 2026 draft. We'll do something like that. So please let me know in the comments how you feel. But yeah, so we'll start with the winners, and I'm going from 5 to 1. So starting off with the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Baltimore Ravens had a really good draft. Ironically, Jesse Minter's first rendition as head coach. That regime as a whole always is run pretty well in regards to how they draft and how they move about things in the draft process and who they get. And it was no different, but I did like a little bit of different flavor that they added in this particular space. They went more offensive driven weaponry in this draft, which really made them immediately make my list because I think they definitely did a good job. I think they addressed, by most, I guess you can say, sports websites, they addressed about 4 to 5 out of the 5 of their biggest positional needs in the 2026 cycle. So I gave them a draft grade of a B. And I think they did really well. And I think these particular guys are going to fit pretty well for Jesse Minter and that new regime over there in B-More. So here's their draft class. They got, of course, they got Vega Owani with their first pick. I love that pick. They got Zion Young in the second pick. I love that pick as well. So imagine a combination of Mike Green and Zion Young as their edge rushers going forward. Under Jesse Minter, they're going to eat. And I think this is finally going to be a conversation where the Baltimore Ravens actually have a pass rush. Because for some reason, by some underwhelming, I guess you can say, event that Harbaugh can never generate good pass rush or never could develop them. Let me say it that way. Jesse Minter is a pretty polar opposite of that. He got the most out of Tuli Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack and Kyle Kennard, you know, even the guy they traded to them in the offseason, you know, in the last season during the regular season, you know, in Adafe Owe, he had a marvel season and got himself paid with up to a tune of $100 million for half a season. So yeah, I think Zion Young is going to really flourish in this defense on alongside Mike Green. I think he's going to unlock Mike Green's potential. Guy they got last year. When I got Jacoby Lane in with pick 80, I love that pick as well. That's going to be a really good outside weapon for them. Then they doubled down and got Elijah Surratt from Indiana, Mr. Back Shoulder Fade. So they smashed the first 3 picks, bar none. Got 2 weapons from the wide receiver perspective. They probably drafted more weapons in the first, you know, I guess you can say 100 picks in one draft than the Ravens did in the last 10 years. But again, you can tell a regime change for sure. You can tell a regime change. So getting Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt to go along with Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, you know, of course they lost to Isaiah Likely, but they're winning to head and kind of address that with pick 133 with Matthew Hibbert from SMU. Don't have a whole lot of, details on this guy. Very obscure pick. I mean, it really could be a scheme fit type of deal. It didn't go after any of the other sexy tight ends that were out there that I was scouting. But he did address the need. So I'll give him credit for that. They actually doubled down on it because they got a tight end in the 173 in the Jose Cervasis. So from Alabama. So we'll give him credit for addressing that room with that giving the backup, two backup tight ends. But in the sandwich in the middle of that, they got Chandler Rivers. I like that pick as well. Slot corner out of Duke, really, really good slot corner out of Duke. Shouts out to Chandler and his brother. They are fans of the show, fans of the channel. So I want to give him a quick shout out. I'm definitely glad that he got drafted. Him and his brother had a little back and forth between us comparing Chandler to Davidson from Ohio State. Davidson was a little bit early, but Chandler definitely got drafted at 162. So shout out to them, and I hope he has a really good career. And we'll be watching you and covering you on this channel. But yeah, and then to round that out, the picks I liked in this particular gamut, because some of these guys are very developmental, in my opinion. But Rashad Benny at 250, very good DT. I'm very surprised he fell to the 7th round. In all honesty, I thought he would go in the 3rd. I was actually trying to hope the Chargers would end up picking him up at some space, but we went a different direction for a DT when Nick Barrett. But overall, I mean, they literally smashed about 6 of these picks. I think if I'm counting correctly, 4 or 5. Yeah, I love 6 of these picks. I love the first 4. I love Chandler Rivers. I love Rashad Benny. And, out of all the picks that they had, they definitely did their numbers, and they definitely got a lot of developmental talent to round out this roster. So, some special teams talent in that space. They even got a punter in this conversation. So, yeah. Jesse Minute is off and running in Baltimore, so I love what they did there. So they get into my list at number 5. Now, number 4 was the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Indianapolis Colts did numbers for me, and they didn't even have a first-round pick. They smashed 4 out of 5 biggest needs, from my opinion. I give them another great draft grade to B. I think they did pretty well in that space as well. Shouts out to Shane Steichen and those boys for doing pretty well despite not having the first-round pick. They spent their first-round pick with Sauce Gardner. But, a lot of people weren't talking about their draft, but once I literally deep dived into it, they hit some good, I would say doubles and triples. Maybe not some home runs, but a lot of doubles and triples if you're playing baseball here. So here's their draft class. Their 2nd-round pick, they went out and got it, C.J. Allen. That was probably the 2nd-best linebacker next to Sonny Styles. We could probably argue that Jacob Rodriguez and him, one, maybe 2A, 2B. But definitely, they was actually pegging CJ to be a first-round pick, and he actually fell to the 2nd round. So they got him to fill that void that was left by them trading Zaire Alexander. They went out and got a safety, A.J. Halsey. I think from LSU, I think he's a really, really good underrated safety. I love that pick. I think that was a slam dunk as well. And I think he's going to start for them, day one. I think he's going to be really good for them. He just cut the tape on YouTube for A.J. Halsey. He's a really good zone cover safety. He really can play a lot of good football, and he was a great pick at 78. They got Jalen Farmer, guard, to fill in the O-line because they had some holes there. I like that pick. It was a really good pick for them. Jalen Farmer was another guy I kind of mocked towards anybody that needed interior offensive lineman. They got him in 113. Got Bryce Buchetter from Oregon, another good linebacker. I like that pick. They got George Gums, the junior edge rusher, to go along with Latu. Then they doubled down with edge with Caden Curry. Now, if you've been watching my coverage either here or the Electric Shock podcast, you know that I am all on the train of Caden Curry. They got Caden Curry, and they got a steal at 214. Hear me and I say, I got a steal at 214 because he is a certified, just hard hat, yellow vest worker of a defensive end. He's going to work hard. And he's going to pay dividends for you. And he's nothing but production. Because this is a guy that had 12 sacks on Ohio State Buckeyes team that was filled with our very recent Sonny Styles. So that tells you right there, having that type of production, despite having that level of talent on your team already, they could take a lot of shine away from you, would tell you a lot about his production. He's not overly, explosive athlete like Arvell or Sonny, but he's going to be a really good, solid edge rusher for this group. And I think he's going to pay really good dividends for them. So that's a slam dunk pick for me. And to round out the draft, they got Deion Burke at 254. I mean, Deion Burke was slated to go like around the 3rd round. I mean, he was one of the better slots in his draft, and I still don't understand why he fell from Oklahoma. But, speedy, rangy slot receiver to go along with Alec Pierce on the outside. I think they definitely nailed that. So just by they got about 6 picks in here that I love as well. So, I mean, out of the holistic group that they smashed 6 of those picks. If you get 6 starters out of a draft, you're winning. I'm here to tell you, you're definitely winning. So I love the coach draft as well. And I think this fills a lot of needs that they have. And I think this team is going to be back to competing as long as they stay healthy in 2026 for sure. They're going to be fighting tooth and nail like dogs in that South Division. The Texans got better. They got better. I'm not sure what the Jaguars are doing, and the Titans got better. So it's going to be an uphill battle in that division. I think they're going to be primed for it. It's all on Daniel Jones' shoulder at this point. We'll see what he can do as long as he stays healthy. So next up on my list is the Miami Dolphins. Now, I know we kicked the Miami Dolphins back in about their first round picks. And I'm going to tell you exactly why we did that. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I'm okay with the draft as a whole. And this is why they made the list at number 3. Because they literally addressed 5 out of the 5 needs that they had. They addressed them all. Now, I may not like every single pick that they made, but you can make a justification of why they made those picks and why they ultimately got those guys in the draft and how they're going to fit into what Hafley and those boys want to do in 2026, in all honesty. I definitely like what they did. And I gave him a B+ in the draft because, again, we kind of shook our heads at the idea, of them drafting, Caden Proctor and Chris Johnson with their 2 first-round picks, right? But when you round out the entirety of the draft, because, again, our reaction was really only the first round because we only have a sample size of first-round, I guess you can say, draft coverage at that point when we did our live show. But when you get down to what they did holistically, I think that definitely smashed that draft as well. I think they're off and running. I think they kind of brought that Green Bay pedigree over to Miami in a sense of how they drafted. So I give them a B+. And here's their draft. So, like I said, they got Caden Proctor. And I'm going to tell you what I like but don't like about Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor is athletic for his size. He's really a massive human being as an O-lineman, and he can move. But my problem is, and it's always been about O-linemen that weigh 335, 340, 345, up to a 360. Right? There's only one lineman, maybe 2 in the entirety of the league's history that has been successful at carrying that level of weight and being productive, right? But you've seen a large sample size of guys that haven't been able to carry that weight. And the problem is this, because they're not only big guys, they're tall. So when you get your legs whipped and you get your legs taken out from under you at that range, at your size, and all that weight coming down on your body, you naturally rip up your legs. You rip up your knees, your Achilles, your quads, your hamstrings. You rip off all your lower body extremities because you're just so tall, and the bigger they are, the harder they fall. That's just, cliche, but that is what it is. So my concern about Caden Proctor is his size. If he was 330 pounds or less, moving that way, or even better because he lost that much of weight, then I promise you that I wouldn't have these concerns at all, him playing tackle. But my concern is his ability to have the level of speed to deal with these speed rushers in the league. And because I almost argued that he could be kicked in the guard, he might be better there. Because I thought the 49ers might take him and say, hey, kick him in the guard, let him play guard next to Trent, and you're good to go. You're good money. But if he's going to play tackle for this Dolphins team, he just got to be able to protect Malik Willis and deal with these speed rushers. But if he can handle it and he stays healthy, I think that's a slam dunk pick because he's a beast. I would think that if you can give him and Vega the tags of the most, I guess you can say, dominating linemen in the draft, period. They definitely make good blocks and definitely finish those blocks a lot of the times, probably 90% of the time when they get their hands on you. So, yeah, it's a good pick if he stays healthy. That's just the only caveat to me. I think that's the only thing that kind of made me scratch my head. But, and I think that Monroe Freeland might have been a safer pick, but, the dominance of Caden Proctor can, be a good thing if he plays well and he stays healthy. But that just gives me angst to say that he plays at that weight and can he stay healthy? That's the part that gives me pause. But if he can stay healthy, it's a slam dunk pick. Then we went down and got Chris Johnson. Now, Chris Johnson didn't make a lot of sense because we didn't know the level of what Jamar McCoy's injury was. So when Jamar McCoy literally dropped to the 3rd day because of this injury and them having to do another surgery on him, and he may not play this entirety of this year, it made a lot of sense. Now, I still thought Colton Hood would have been a better, safer pick. But Chris Johnson was literally a top 5 corner in this draft. So, yeah, he was a first-round pick. Most people would have had him going in the early second. It was a slight reach, but not really. If he went in the top of the second round, we're only talking 5 picks difference. And you get a 5th-year option on him as you're starting, and most highly productive corner in your defense. It's a win. It's a win. Then they went out and got Jacob Rodriguez in the second. That's another great pick. One of the best linebackers in the draft. He won every single award the linebacker could win in college in his last year. So hell, what you can't go wrong there for sure. I like that pick. The Caleb Douglas and Will Kamarick pick, but the Chris Bell pick I really love. The Trey Moore pick I love. The Kyle Lewis pick I love. The Mike Tarfy pick from safety I loved as well. So I think that those particular picks, and I think that Trey Moore being a linebacker, a hybrid linebacker, that he is a rusher and an off-ball linebacker. He can do both. So they got him at 130, which I feel like is a steal. They got another weapon for finally addressing the offense with Caleb Douglas and Chris Bell. And I think Chris Bell might be the better prospect in a sense because I think he's more athletic, he's speedier, it's more of a speedy wide receiver. So I think that him adding to that wide receiver room was a big plus, and them getting him at 94. Kyle Lewis is an undersized linebacker, but he's a very productive one if he's able to be free and make plays. He's very athletic. I think he's a former safety turned linebacker. So that lets you know that he can have the ability to be a 3-down linebacker. If he puts him on about 5 or 10 more pounds, he will be primed and ready to produce for this offense, in this defense, excuse me. So I think that's a good pick as well. So I would argue that they probably got about 6 people out of the draft that I actually loved in its entirety. Like I said, Kyle Lewis, Trey Moore, Mike, Chris Bell. We might be talking 6.5, maybe 7. So I definitely like the first 3. So that's 3. The Chris Bell and Trey Moore and the Kyle Lewis picks I definitely love. The Mike Tarfy pick as safety from the Texas Longhorns I like as well. So I'll give them all 6 or 7 picks that I actually liked in this draft. So I think they did pretty well for themselves. But I definitely believe that their first 3 were going to be starters day one. And they're going to be highly contributors as long as Caden Carter can stay healthy. That's my only question. But outside of that, I think they slammed it. Next up on my list, number 2 is the Jets. Now, we can argue about what they're actually going to do with this talent, but they drafted the hell out of this one. I'm telling you, they did their numbers from top to bottom. All the picks they had, the mixing and matching, the moving around, things of that nature, they picked at the top of the draft, and they got really, really good players. So I gave them a B+. I gave them a B+ in that space, and I think they did pretty well. I mean, just look at the top 4. Before we even get into the nitty-gritty of this particular conversation, David Bailey, one of the best edge rushers in the draft, slammed up. That replaces your Jermaine Johnson leave that we got traded for. Kenyon Sadiq, the most athletic tight end in the draft. 6'3", athletic freak. Like, he arguably could be a really big time 245 pound wide receiver. He runs that fast. I mean, you run a 4.34 as a 245 pound tight end. I mean, and him and Mason Taylor and 2 tight end sets with the receivers that got on the outside. Yes. Sign me up for that. Again, I don't know what they're going to do with it from the offensive coordinator perspective and what Eric Glenn's going to do from a leadership perspective, but they got great, really good picks. So then they went out and got Omar Cooper Jr. to add to their room. So you got Adnan Mitchell, Omar Cooper, and Garrett Wilson as your starting 3 receivers, and along with Kenyon Sadiq and Mason Taylor. That's 5, count them, 5 really good receivers in your offense for Geno Smith. Now, mind you, it is Geno Smith. So again, I'm not sure what this offense is going to look like. But on paper, and if you were a Madden player, all you have to do is replace Geno Smith with a good quarterback, and you're cooking with gas. The defense is solid. The offense has got weapons. The O-line is intact and good. Yeah, you're already ready to make moves. And maybe you can finally win the Jets a championship, at least on Madden. Because who knows when the hell they ever might win a championship as an organization. Maybe never. Not in my lifetime. They're just too dysfunctional, Woody Johnson. But that's a whole nother conversation. But slam the draft. Daryl Johnston in 103. Love that pick as well. Another DT to go along with that interior D lineman that already stacked. And then we don't got Cade Klubnik at 110. Now, I would argue this. They start struggling. And Cade Klubnik looks good in camp. We could be seeing him at sometime this season. That's just a hot take. That's a hot take. That's why I love the pick. That's why I said they got about 6 good picks in their first 6 were slam dunk to me. And they're all needs. Now they got some developmental guys with a guard and the safety at the end of this draft. But I mean, hell, it's 188 and 228. I mean, it's the very bottom of the draft. So that's what you're likely going to get, especially with a weak draft that this was. But yes, when I say they slammed their first 6, they definitely hit the home run with those for sure. So that's why I gave them a B+. Really good showing for the Jets. Love that. Love what they did there. Love it. And to round it out, the Buffalo Bills at number 1 for me. 5 out of 5 with positional needs. Draft grade of an A. Again, this was without one of the second-round picks they traded for DJ Moore. But they did their numbers as well. I mean, just very, very good and very, very sneaky in what they did. And I'm going to tell you why. Here's their draft class. So for their first pick at 35, they went out and got TJ Parker, because I think they traded out of the first round altogether. Went out and got an edge rusher with TJ Parker, so you're going to pair him up with Greg Russo. So you already got your edge rushers room is set with their starters day one. Now, TJ Parker got to work on that run defense. But outside of that, he's definitely a really good pass rusher on third down for sure. Then they talk about my guy Davidson from Ohio State. They picked him up at 62. Really good outside corner. Tall, rangy, speedy, really good in both man and zone. Really good slam dunk pick there. When I got Drew Bowery, I'm not sure if I like that pick at 102 from a tackle perspective, but I really think that's a backup guy because I think their O-line is set. They definitely don't need any tackles right now. So even if he kicks in the guard at some point, they're set at their guard position too. Osiris Torrance and those guys, they brought their center back, in free agency. So yeah, they definitely not hurting on the O-line. So that was more of a developmental pick in a sense if somebody gets hurt. But the pick 125 was really intriguing to me. Skylar Bell. Skylar Bell from UConn is a very highly productive outside and slot receiver for them. I mean, just the numbers he put up. I think he had over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns. He had a zillion catches. I have to look up the numbers to be accurate on it, but look up his stats in his last year. He put up numbers. Now you can say he played in UConn and he was going against different competition, but the numbers, the ability, and his ability to play wide receiver itself was a steal. So you want to line him up with those two tight ends with Knox and Kincaid. Now you got DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, and him. And Skylar Bell can line up outside and inside. You can kind of mix and match him, leave Khalil Shakir in the slot. I think that was a slam dunk. And this is something I want to talk about on my podcast on Lecture Shop, because I think Skylar Bell was a guy they should have picked instead of the guy they did. Because again, he's way more productive and has more of a better build, because he's about 188, 190 pounds. The guy they picked up was 164. I don't like it, but I'll talk about that in another pod. But, I just had to, quantify that why I like Skylar Bell. And they doubled down with the very next pick with Caleb Elam's Orr. Now, if you watch my sleeper video on Patreon throughout this process, I love Caleb Elam's Orr as a sleeper pick, and they got him at 126. And that was a slam dunk pick. And that's definitely your Matt Milano of the future pick there. They definitely utilizing that to kind of fill that void that Matt Milano's going to leave from this particular conversation. And I believe that Caleb, with his speed, his ranginess, his diagnosing of plays, his run defense, you keep this kid free and clean, he's going to make a lot of plays for you. And he's really, really aggressive and really, I want to say he's nasty, but I think he's a little bit on that side. And not nasty in a bad way. Nasty is a player in a good way. Like, he really gets down and dirty with it. And he definitely plays a lot of good football at the linebacker spot. Then I got Jalen Kilgore, cornerback from South Carolina. I love him as well. Them South Carolina Gamecocks turned out a lot of good defensive players. They really do. Nick Emenwari, for instance, in that space. A few safeties came out of that group. For a couple of D linemen. So yeah, they definitely turned out some good defensive players in that South Carolina program. And Jalen Kilgore is no different. So they went out and got two solid corners to go against this defense with the guys they already got, Maxwell Harrison in those spaces. So I love that. Then they went out and got him an interior pass rushing DT in Zane Durant. Zane Durant is a really good, sneaky interior pass rushing defensive lineman. He's not really the best at run defender, but he can pass rush with the best of them from the interior. And that's very underrated. Interior pass rushers are very underrated, and they got to steal with him at 181. So I definitely think they did their numbers there. And I even think, as a developmental piece, I even think Toronto Pride Jr. from Missouri is a good pick. I think he's a developmental guy, but I think you only have to work with him. But I think he still can be productive if you work with him and get the best out of him. So I think they did. I think they nailed it. Outside of maybe the tackle pick of 102, I think they nailed the draft. So I give them glowing numbers, and they're my number one pick in regards to what they did for the draft. So I love everything they did here. So they're my number one spot in regards to what they did in 2026. So getting to my top winners, I said the Bills, 6 good picks, Jets, 6 good picks, Dolphins, 6 good picks, 4, Colts at 4 with 6 good picks, and the Ravens at 5 with 6 good picks as well. So I think all these guys from top to bottom smashed their drafts, and they got glowing numbers and glowing grades for me in that space. Love everything they did. And here's my honorable mentions. I give the Cowboys a lot of love. They had a good draft, especially at the top. Kansas City Chiefs did a really good numbers, solid draft as well. I think the Raiders did really good for themselves. They've drafted well the last 2 years. They just haven't done nothing with it yet. That's the only caveat. But they definitely got talent on their roster, even more so now. I think the Chargers had a solid draft outside of the bottom part of it, and I'm going to talk about that later. I think they did pretty good in the top half of the draft, moving around and get some really good players. I think the Steelers did a really good job. We don't know what they're going to do at quarterback yet, but they got Drew Aller and a few other guys in space, and they got some good players at the top of their draft. So I think they did good. The Carolina Panthers snuck in a good draft too, man. Look at their roster in totality. They got really good players over there. I think they had 5 good picks in their draft as well as the New Orleans Saints. I love everything the New Orleans Saints did, and we're definitely going to be watching out what Kellen Moore does in 2026 with Tyler Shuck, because they got some bodies over there now. They got some players, and Tyler Shuck and Kellen Moore paired up together for another year and some more growth. I think they're definitely going to be making some noise and maybe be a scary, sneaky sleeper team in the South for 2026. So watch out for them boys. So those are the winners. Stay tuned tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for part 2 of our Winners and Losers series, where we discuss the top 5 losers of the NFL draft right here on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network.